The woman on the screen holds true stories that are hard to believe. She has been dubbed the most evil woman in the history of mankind, with both the appearance and profession of a full-time abbess. Mariam Soulakiotis deceived everyone around her for decades, driven by her main motives of money and power. By the end of her reign, Mariam Soulakiotis would be arrested and known as the Nun Serial killer. This is not a horror movie script, unfortunately, it's a very real story. Mariam Soulakiotis was born in 1883 in Greece, belonging to an impoverished family. Despite her humble background, she had high aspirations for a life of wealth and power. Mariam worked at a factory to earn daily wages for her family. Unable to find prosperity in her current circumstances, she chose an unexpected path to achieve her dreams. She decided to become a nun and join the old Kalandras church. Matthew Karpathakis, the head monk of the Kalandras church, met Mariam when she was 23. Facing conflicts with the old church's teachings, Matthew decided to start a new convent. Mariam joined him, and together they laid the foundation of the Panaya Theft Kuno Gatrasum Monastery in 1927. Marina's rise through the church ranks was swift, and she became a confidant of Archbishop Matthew. They presented the monastery as a healing center for tuberculosis, TB, attracting people in need of medical treatment. However, behind the facade of a healing center, Mariam was involved in gruesome practices. Patients were kept in poor conditions, denied proper medical treatment, and often succumbed to their illnesses. The monastery's true purpose was to gather funds for the old Kalandras movement, and Mariam, along with Matthew, used deceptive methods to amass wealth. Mariam's crimes extended beyond suspicions of illegal imports. She was accused of destroying lives through violence, extortion, and blackmail. The monastery's victims included those who sought spiritual enlightenment but fell prey to Mariam's greed. She manipulated people into donating their properties, using tactics such as imprisonment, torture, and starvation. Mariam's victims included Mr. and Mrs. Becca, who were devout followers of the Kalandras church. Mrs. Becca, initially impressed by the Archbishop Matthew, later tried to leave the monastery with her children. Mariam, unwilling to lose a valuable donor, locked Mrs. Becca in a cell, leading to her eventual death. The Panayotopoulos, another couple, were also lured into joining the monastery. Mariam manipulated them into transferring their property to her name, and when their usefulness ended, she orchestrated their deaths. Mariam's crimes went beyond financial extortion. She was responsible for the deaths of many individuals suffering from TB. Patients like Miss Michaelakos and Sister Theodo were subjected to negligence, starvation, and brutal beatings. Those who dared to speak out against Mariam faced her ruthless wrath, as seen in the cases of Sister Theodote and Sister Mariam. Mariam Soulakiotis became infamous as Mother Rasputin in the media. Her crimes involved not just financial deceit but also negligent homicides and brutal acts of violence. The monastery's activities were initially shielded by the Kalandras church, but eventually, Mariam atrocities came to light through witness statements and investigations. The police received an anonymous tip about an elderly woman forced to donate her property to the monastery. As investigations into Mariam's mysterious wealth continued, more victims like Eugenia Margetta and Christos Spirits came forward with allegations of coercion and torture. Mariam's arrest took place on December 4, 1950, with a massive police operation at the monastery. They rescued children and uncovered malnourished and sick elderly women tied up in basements. Mariam Soulakiotis was convicted on multiple charges, including homicide, fraud, forgery of wills, blackmail, and torture. Her trials spanned 3 separate sessions, resulting in a total sentence of 14 years. Mariam's followers, known as the Matthewites, held rallies demanding her release, but the Kalandras church's authority was dismantled, and Mariam's worship was outlawed. She spent a short time in prison before falling ill and eventually dying at the age of 71. Mariam Soulakiotis left a dark mark on history, with her crimes revealing the sinister truth behind her seemingly pious facade. Despite her portrayal as a religious figure, her actions reflected greed, cruelty, and a complete disregard for human life. The lessons from Mariam's story emphasize the importance of not judging based on appearances and the potential for darkness to lurk behind religious veils.